Welcome to the MacJury. This is the home of truth, justice, and the Macintosh way. I'm Chuck Joyner, and I am happy to convene a panel of experts for a topic that we hope will be beneficial for a lot of hardware and software vendors in times to come. But we'll touch on the topic in a minute. Let's first let you hear from everybody that you'll be hearing from. First up, Ms. Jean Macdonald. Jean, it's great to have you back on the MacJury.
Hi, Chuck. Thanks for having me again. It's good to be here. I'm Jean from Smile. We make software for your Mac and your iPhone and iPad, including PDF Pen and Text Expander, Disk Label, and the new PDF Pen for iPad, which we just released at Macworld.
Which seems to have been setting the world on fire as far as I could see, Jean.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting.
Oh, that's great. Also with us, and the last time I saw him was at Macworld, just like with Jean, Mr. Jeff Gamet. Jeff.
Thanks for having me on, Chuck. And as always, I'm amazed you invite me back every single time.
It's just you're too entertaining, Jeff, not to.
That must be it. All right. So for those people that don't know me, I'm Jeff Gamet. I'm the managing editor for Mac Observer, and I do the podcast circuit. And yeah, Google me. I'm easy to find.
Okay. And last but absolutely not least, Mr. Mark Fuccio. Mark, I haven't seen you since San Francisco. This is like a big reunion.
That's right. We ran into each other a lot, especially on the last day of the show floor. It seems our tastes somehow are aligned. We're running into each other at each booth.
Yeah.
I'm Mark Fuccio. I've been here on jury duty before. I don't know why I keep getting drugged back. Maybe it's because I keep sending in these things. I'll serve. Just pay me mileage to Pennsylvania.
And as you can see, folks, he's on camera, not here. So
now,
right.
Mark, if it helps at all, if Chuck lets me back, the bar's been set pretty low, so you've got to be better than me. So well done.
Given the trouble we had in this pre-show, I understand that comment exactly.
Well, I have to tell you, today's, depending on when you folks are listening to this, the topic for this MacJury is how vendors can get more out of a trade show when they're exhibiting. Mark and I had a couple discussions about this, Mark being now an independent business consultant. So we put this jury together with Mark representing that point of view. Jeff is supposed to be the legitimate journalist, tech journalist that attends these shows.
Oh, God, the pressure's on.
Yeah. Jean, of course, is from a software company that was exhibiting at Macworld, iWorld, and she goes to a number of trade shows. And I guess I'm here as moderator and independent press. So we have four very different perspectives on this, but we saw a lot of things that we felt people pardon me. We saw a lot of things we felt people were doing right at Macworld, iWorld. We saw a few things that maybe could be improved on. So I'm hoping that not only will a lot of exhibitors to Macworld, iWorld watch this, I'm hoping people will watch it closer to next year's show. But for that matter, if you're a vendor and you're going to go to a trade show, maybe these can give you some ideas of things that will help all of us, the four of us, give you what you want, whatever that happens to be at the show. And Mark, since you were the one that sort of suggested this topic, I want to ask you for one of the first things on your list.
Well, first thing I'd start off with is a little bit of levity. And I was speaking to one of the exhibitors at Macworld this afternoon. Told her about the topic of the show and your attempt to try to turn into something beneficial so people can learn. And the thing Suzanne told me is, make sure you tell them in San Francisco the traffic laws are rigorously enforced. You will get ticketed for speeding, you'll get ticketed for parking. And she related her story that when one of the lights on one of the corners around Moscone, the light was yellow turning red. She was at the last of a pack of about 4 cars. She went through, thought there was no problem, and then 2 days ago got a summons from the court of San Francisco. About, all told, it's going to be about $500 between fines and fees and traffic school. So one thing that even if vendors live in the state of California, unless you're used to San Francisco, one of the first things to be aware of is you'll have big surprises for parking, for tickets, almost anything vehicle related, because our state is so hungry for revenue and it has a deficit that people and cars are fair targets.
Yeah, it's true. I guess when you're coming to a new city, if you're not familiar with it, that's a great point.
Right. So on a more serious note, my recollection was we saw each other Saturday morning early as the show opened. We're talking about some of the things we'd seen, and some of the, one of us asked, well, what could be better? And we started talking about. I think the first thing I mentioned was I had seen some companies where you walk by their booth and all you see is their name and maybe a logo. And the question is, what does the company do? And really, for somebody, if they're spending all the money to exhibit there, you need some sort of hook to draw them in. So don't just have a name, don't just have some sort of ethereal, meaningless slogan. Have a little bit of descriptive prose, to be able to draw attention, so that, especially if it's very, very crowded, like it is on the last day of the show, if you don't stand out, people just walk by you. And if you're not meeting people, then I hate to say it, but you take all the money you'd spend on Macworld and set it ablaze and barbecue marshmallows and hot dogs, because you get a better return if people don't come by and visit.
Yeah, I had that with a couple people. I ended up meeting them, and I was very interested in them, but their presence, I could have walked right by. It's just ABC company. Okay, give me a hint. I don't have any idea. So it sounds so obvious, but I think it's a good point. Jeff, did you have any of that experience?
I had a lot of that experience. The big thing for me at Macworld this year, well, actually pretty much every year, it's communication. And companies, even with the best of intentions, oftentimes have really bad communication. And that communication can start before the show, where they're not letting me know that they're going to be there. And then it follows into the show where they don't have a good presence on the expo floor. And by that, I mean, they might have the best people in the world, they might have the best product in the world, but they're not letting us know. And if you don't have, like Mark was saying, if you don't have something at your booth that lets me know what it is that your product is, what it is that it's supposed to do, and why I should care, and I don't want to sound callous, but really, why should I care? I'm probably going to walk past because there's someone else I know that I want to meet with because they had good communication with me, or there's a booth next to yours or two down that has something up that tells me what the product is that they're showing off. And on the last day of the show, I do this thing, and it's specifically because people don't communicate well, where I walk around, and if I see a booth that I can easily get to, and I have no idea what it is, but for whatever reason, I get just the tiniest little spark of, oh, go talk to that booth. And it really can be as simple as there's no one there, and I can actually get to that booth. I find some interesting things, but it's a total luck thing. And counting on luck and hoping that someone just decides on a whim because there's an opening and they can get to your booth to walk up and say, hi, what do you have? That's not good. And if you can't explain your product quickly, then, and here I am being callous again, you're wasting your time and you're wasting my time, because there's a lot of people at the show that you want to talk to as a vendor. There's a lot of people at the show I want to talk to as a journalist. And if we're wasting each other's time, how many other companies are not getting connected?
Jean, I'm curious to see your reaction to what Jeff said. Now, we all know each other. We all have a good working relationship in this group. But when I hear journalists say that, I used to think, gee, aren't they a little bit egotistical? Until I started trying to, because it sounds like it's all about them. But at the end of the day, I mean, then I started trying to cover the shows the way that I do. And I discovered that, I want to get to talk to as many people as I can. But Jeff's right. If you're going to waste my time, I didn't get to see everybody I wanted to because there were situations like that.
Yeah, well, I think it makes a lot of sense that one of the things that we do is I kind of rehearse my staff, for one thing. I mean, it used to just be me and Philip and Greg, and maybe one other person, and we would work the whole show and have like 30 minutes to eat lunch in the middle of the day, and we would be, insane. But as we've grown and we have a bigger support staff, we brought some of them to the show so they can answer questions. But we talk about how the show is not like support. You're not going to go into great detail with people, on how something is done in the program, at least not before you get across the point of like why you want this software, what it can do for you. So I think it is important to have those short openings because you never know how much time or attention you're going to be able to get from somebody.
And Jean, thank you, because that kind of takes us over to my first issue, that I went to a number of booths and say, hi, I'd like to talk to somebody. I'd like to do, in my case, a video interview. And, well, let me get so-and-so for you. It's like, vendors, please. You're wasting your money if everyone in your booth is not media trained, whatever that means to you. But
yes,
everybody in that booth should be able to go on mic, on camera, or talk to a customer completely intelligently. I mean, and unless you have somebody there strictly to hand out T-shirts, and even then, it's just not a good idea.
Can I offer up a couple companies that are excellent examples of good communication at trade shows?
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So first, and I'm not saying this because you're here, Jean, Smile Software.
I agree. Yep.
By the time I get to the show, I have had emails, chats, phone calls, and I'm well aware of what it is that I'm going to be seeing at the show. And that's awesome, because even though I'm already well briefed on what the products are going to be, and for some people that's enough. Why would they need to go to the show? Because they've already had everything. There's a big difference between doing everything on the phone and through emails compared to actually going face-to-face. So Smile is fantastic with that, and I knew Jean was training all her people, because I could walk up to anyone at either of their two booths, ask a question, and they knew the answer, and if they didn't, they knew which other person in their group had the answer. So there wasn't any, I don't know, but, hey, look at this. It was either, here's your answer, or talk to this guy. And it was great. And the other company that I just love dealing with at trade shows like this is Omni Group. And it's the same thing.
They're really good.
They're fantastic. Before I get to the show, I've had emails, I've had phone calls, and depending on what the product is, I might have even had a pre-briefing before we get there. And then when I get to the show, I already have my meeting set up so that I can sit down and talk with the appropriate people and figure out exactly what it is that I need to be following from their company over the next year. And everyone at their booth, it's the same thing. They either know the answer or they can point me right to the person that does. And it's a wonderful thing. I know when I go to the Smile booth or when I go to the Omni Group booth, I'm not going to be wasting my time.
Okay, now Jeff, I'm curious, and I did the disclaimer. Everybody knows Jean and everybody knows Smile, but how about those first-time exhibitors to the show who they don't know Jeff Gamet, and more importantly, for this discussion, Jeff Gamet doesn't know them. How do they properly attract your attention or brief you to the point of wanting to stop by their booth? Because I talked to an awful lot of first-time exhibitors this year, some really great stuff. And they're part of the reason I wanted to do this show is that there were things that from my perspective, they could have done a lot better. And it wasn't because they didn't want to, they just didn't know. So how does a first-time person with no real track record and maybe going to the big show for the first time communicate properly with you without you saying, oh my God, I'm being bombarded and harassed by emails and phone calls?
See, that's a problem, because I mean, it's a big problem because once a conference gets close enough to launch, the number of emails that I will get every single day related to the event, it's off the chart, and it is quite literally unmanageable. So, I mean, how do you get through that? And I don't have a good answer for that part. But if you're ahead of time communicating with me in some way, I mean, you're getting me that email so that hopefully I can get through that, and you're doing something that's different from everyone else. And I know I'm being vague because I don't know what that special thing is. And I know if I said, like, okay, like, here's an example. One year there was it was FileMaker, and it was when they were getting ready to release Bento. And what they did before the show, and I'm not saying this as, hey, everyone send me presents, but this is a very clever way to get my attention. What they did was they sent out to media these little Bento boxes, and they had chocolate sushi in them. And it was really, really clever. And so when it came time to actually be at the show and meet with them, I had already had this bento box delivered to me. And even though I couldn't eat the candy because it's milk chocolate and I'm lactose intolerant, it didn't matter because other people wanted the chocolate. And they did something that stuck in my mind.
Right.
So
Yeah.
That was the very clever thing. Now, once you've been able to make that connection with a journalist, it's much easier to keep that communication going. So when another thing that happened this year, there was a company. It was a startup company, and they had a really clever service that they were just in the early stages of putting together, and they happened to see me, and they had been looking for me, and they just walked up to me and wanted to know if they could give me a pitch. And it was between meetings, and I thought, okay, well, they found me. They went to the trouble to find me, and they want to give me this pitch. And I said, here's how much time I have. And they went, okay. And they gave me a pitch that fit exactly in the window of time that we had. And it turned out it was really intriguing, and I was really interested in what they're doing. And so I said, great, okay. Now that I know about this, please keep me in the loop, keep me up to date on what you're doing, so that as this progresses, I can make sure that you have some coverage, because this is something people should know about. And this is where a lot of companies fall down. They don't do the follow-up. And
exactly.
I haven't heard from that company since they gave me their pitch at Macworld Expo.
Yeah. Missed opportunity.
Yeah, I wanted to chime in on this because I can clearly remember the first time I met Jeff Gamet at Macworld.
I remember that too.
So I want to give away my secret for how to meet Jeff Gamet at Macworld. Jeff Gamet is always going to be doing some presentation at Macworld, unless they completely change the way they do, speaker sessions and what kinds of things they want to present. There's always something that Jeff can be giving a presentation on that will be really interesting. And I went to one of his presentations, and the funny thing is that was 2006, I believe. I'm almost sure, because yes, it was the year that Browseback came out, and it was. We had won Best of Show for that. But anyway, that was my third Macworld. So I didn't meet Jeff at my first or my second Macworld. I only met him at my third Macworld because I looked at the program and I said, you know what, guys, I need to take some time away from the booth and go to some of these sessions. And that meeting Jeff was a byproduct of picking my head up for a second and saying, yeah, it's good to be at the booth, but you also have to have some time around, with some of the other activities that are going on. So I know it's tempting when you're first starting out and you're a really small company and you really can only bring like 2 people to the show, and there's no way you can staff the booth and have somebody going to some of the user conference stuff. But I highly recommend, trying to do it at least for a couple of targeted sessions, so that, because the speakers are generally really friendly, like Jeff Gamet, and if you come up to them afterwards and you have a question or even just to introduce yourself, they'll remember you. And it worked with Jeff. It was not a strategy, but it should be. That should be your strategy.
Yeah. Okay. Now here's a follow-up to that, Jean. Because when you came up and introduced yourself after that session, and we were talking about Browseback, and I said, I know about it. Why should I care? Because I wasn't getting it. And you explained it really well. And then I was like, okay, I need to start playing with Browseback. But then the other thing that happened was that Ken Case from Omni Group happened to come walking up, and you went, oh, I want you to meet Ken. And I had really needed to meet Ken and hadn't been able to get coordinated with him. And so there we were at the end of the session, and we got to meet, and then you turned around and pulled Ken over and took care of an introduction for me that I hadn't been able to make happen because my schedule had been so weird. So that worked out really well. It's cool. Shows like this are awesome for networking.
Mark?
Right. Yeah, I was a couple points just to close on those, and then go into a new area, which is ultimately whether you're talking to a press or customer prospect or somebody who don't know because you can't see their badge. Ultimately, you need to boil down your message. It needs to be very short and pithy. Of this is what we do. This is the problem we solve. This is the benefit to you. There's all sorts of different ways that you can get that across. But you don't need to go on forever and ever and ever, because that was one thing I saw walking around. You could see some long-winded pitches, and you can tell. And the people, some people have enough, interpersonal, courage to say, "Sorry, I don't have time," and then walk away. And others, they'll just walk around rolling on their feet and looking uncomfortable. So, it's really, you need a very premium on communication, and ultimately that requires a little bit of practice, to make sure everyone is short and to the point. I think the other thing about that is it is a great networking opportunity. I hadn't thought of this until now, but one thing I did see that, sometimes maybe it has a little bit of a clubby atmosphere because, people know each other. But still, if you're talking to somebody and then somebody else comes and introduce them, shake hands. I mean, Jeff, you just told the story that, how that helped cement your relationship with Jean years ago. That's something that's simple for everybody else at the show. I mean, ultimately, it's just human kindness. Doesn't need to be some strategic, deep business secret, but help introduce people. And then, finally, one thing I saw is there was one booth I wanted to get to, and this builds on one of Jean's points, that if you are short-staffed, yes, people understand you need bio breaks and lunch breaks and things, but if you're going to be away for an extended period, don't just leave your booth there. Get one of these little clocks that, we'll be back at, and set it to 1:30 or something. People understand that, but there's one vendor had something that was very interesting to me, and I swung by twice, and they weren't there twice. So I'm sorry, it's not like baseball. You don't get a third strike.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. In fact, I know there was one, Mark, that I specifically went to the booth at a time that was convenient to me, and they weren't there because they were actually doing one of the presentations, one of the tech talks. But they had a note up saying, we're doing the tech talk, we'll be back. And
great.
Immediately made it, first of all, it told me that they're doing a tech talk, so they must be showing something interesting, and it also let me know when they'd be back, and so I did circle back around and talk to them. And you're right, it sounds simple, it sounds like common sense, but it's surprising how many common sense things go out the window.
See, it all goes back to communication.
Yeah, you're right. Jean, as an exhibitor, what were some of the things that you saw other people doing that you thought were really effective or not effective?
Well, I have to admit that as I was, sort of gathering my thoughts today to be on this jury, I realized that I wasn't really qualified for this jury because I never really got to see what anybody else was doing. I ran to the Anthro booth in the last half hour so that I could order a new desk. And other than that, I didn't really get to see, what people were doing with pitches or what sort of stuff. We were in two places at Macworld. We were in the Mac developers section, and then we also had a little stand at in the iOS, mobile app showcase, as they called it. And so I got to see a little bit more about, over in the mobile app showcase, because the stands are really close together, and for example, I think that Boinks, who were our neighbors in the mobile app showcase, did a great job of demoing something on an iPad. Demo on the iPad is tricky. It's definitely it's an evolving skill that we all need to get better at. But they had a pretty good little stand so they didn't have to hold their iPads at all. And what they were showing, you really wanted the iPad not to be wiggling around. With PDF Pen, I think it was a little different because it's more, like you're holding a document or a book when you're showing a PDF. But for Boink's iStop Motion, they had something, it was motion video. And if they had been holding on to these iPads and moving them around as they were making animated videos with stop motion techniques, I think that would have been, vertigo inducing for the attendees. So I admired that they found the right piece of equipment to hold that iPad, because that was definitely thinking ahead. But in terms of other than that, yes, the headphone people who had the trampoline,
right.
Well, yeah, they got my attention. They got everybody's attention, but I don't think that's the kind of show that the people who we're talking to tonight, that the first time or new, not yet, people have not yet exhibited, are probably not going to come with a trampoline and some Olympic level trampoline gymnasts to demo their headphones. So trying to think if there's any little thing that I got, or it was not that kind of year for me. I really didn't get to wander the show this year so much. So I apologize for you can kick me off the jury if you want.
Gene, because I think your perspectives are very valuable, and certainly you're a veteran of enough Macworld, iWorlds, Macworld Conference and Expo, a dozen other kind of trade shows that you've seen plenty of things, plenty of water going to the bridge. Mm-hmm. Mark, pick another one, because I know you had a number that we wanted to make sure we hit on.
Yeah, I'm thinking back from my days at being at Macworld for Drobo, that as an exhibitor, you want to get and meet and greet people. So there's simple things, basic mechanical things, like if people are coming by, if you're talking to them, you scan their badge. That way you have their contact information, and you can start an e-marketing campaign and nurture them, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's one thing that's important to do. And then also, if you do scan people, follow up. It's been 6 weeks now, and I think I've received maybe 2 emails. There's one company that I really didn't expect to hear anything from them, and they were very focused, very organized. And I've had 2 pieces, and it's not the here's our show special, bye, but they're 2 educational, informative ones. And I'm thinking if they're going to follow. I wonder if they're going to follow the 3 or 4 emails before they hit you with a sales pitch, just to educate and nurture you. And that's totally fine, because people don't want the hard pitch. They want to learn and figure out and understand, does a product solve what they need. And you don't have any ability to do that if you're not building an email list of people to send to.
Yeah.
Jeff, one of the things that I know Paul Kent and the crew have been trying to bring back from the older days that so many people seem to want to do is they actually want to buy things on the show floor. And that presents a lot of challenges, just from logistics, from ordering, from taxes and all. Any thoughts on how the vendors were handling that this year and ways that they could improve, or the ones that were doing it well?
The companies that had booths set up where they could funnel people through for purchases and still have a separate area for demos, those are the companies that were, I think, handling sales a lot better. That said, some of the booths aren't big enough to do that. And if you have something that's really popular, there's simply no way to work around trying to make a sale and do demos at the same time. So, that's a really tough one. But for what okay, now that I've completely munged that, let me start my sentence over. All right. So what I was really happy to see was that vendors were getting to sell again. And I think that's a really big thing, because there are a lot of people that come to the show really wanting to buy stuff on the expo floor. And if a company can sell at the show, if they have a product that's interesting, people keep coming and buying, which then gets the interest of other people. Why is everyone going over to that booth? And then they go over and they find out about the product. And if it's a product that when you sell it, you put it in your own branded bag, and now people are walking around the expo floor with your branded bag in their hand, people will then see that, and then they're going to see what is it that people are buying, because everyone has this bag from company X. And I think that's an awesome marketing tool for companies that are actually exhibiting.
I would add to that depending on what the product is, it may not be something people want to actually buy at the show floor. I bought some software from Nuance, and they said, "Oh, we have it right here. We can give you the DVD." And I said, "Well, I don't want the DVD, because that way I pay sales tax on it. If I buy software, it's a free download, and also I don't want the DVD itself. I just want everything electronic." And they say, "Okay, that's fine. This is what you can do. We're creating the codes right now. Come back half an hour. We'll have the code for you." I came back. I got the code, and then tried it the following, I think, Monday, and it wasn't working. So I contacted the person who sent it to me, and she said, "Oh, try this again. This is the code. We're sorry. We apologize." And tried it and ordered it, and download came through great. And I really want to plug Nuance, because I had a great experience from that. It had a little bit of trouble, as you could see, but they worked it out, and great customer service to the very end. And I think the lesson there for other companies is, maybe your product, if it's big or heavy, maybe you don't want to sell it on the show floor, but you can either take orders there, and good booth design, like Jeff was saying, will help to do that, or you tell people, we have a show special, and if you do that, by all means, follow up and hit them with the show special, midweek after Macworld. That way, they get back, they clear through their inbox and everything else, and then you can catch them at the point, and maybe, and it's up to for grabs or discussion of whether that is leading to a higher or lower probability of buying than maybe trying to force people to do something on the show floor by saying, "Well, we have this really great deal, but it ends at Saturday at 4:00 when the show ends."
Well, and Mark, that sort of goes back to your comment about collecting emails. If somebody has stopped by the booth, why wouldn't you do? And you're right, don't do it on Monday after Macworld or after everybody gets in. Just forget it. It's never going to happen. But if you hit them Wednesday, Thursday, Friday of the following week, while it's still fresh in their minds, but they've also had a little sleep, offer them the show special, and maybe you don't have to publish it anywhere. Maybe if your system would allow it, give them a code that's just for them or just for attendees. And if it gets out on one of the deal sites, well,
whatever. That's
Who
awesome.
cares?
That's still okay. That's still okay.
Yeah.
We'll time out.
Yeah. But no, I think that's brilliant. I want to recognize the folks at i4 Software. I don't know if you all saw it. They make an iPhone app called Video Camera, and I thought they were brilliant, because they were having their people. They were doing a terrific demo, but then they had their people around the demo pit, and they said, if you have your iPhone and you buy it right here, right now, and show it to one of our people on your phone, we will give you this little holder for your iPhone that turns it. I never did get one, but I'll use this.
I got one, a $20 value.
Yeah, a $20 value, which, but it was functional. It snapped onto your iPhone and would let you hold it like a camera a little more. I mean,
that's where everyone was getting those.
It was brilliant. It was brilliant.
Could you just what was the pitch again? They would give it if you would show somebody
if you bought their app on your iPhone right there and you showed it to one of their people that
I see.
That it was installed on your iPhone, they would give you one of these.
Oh, that's really smart.
Oh, it was brilliant. And I'm thinking, okay, now I'm not sure you can do it with T-shirts unless you just buy an amazing bulk for the price.
No, but you can give away screen cloths, for example.
Yes. They're all kind of little things. So what a nice little encouragement, and just that little something to just push people over the edge.
And I would say also that they were very well polished, because when they did that, they say, we're going to give this out. We have short supply. Let me go check. And then they go in and open. So a little bit of theatrics just to create that sense of urgency to buy now. And it was masterfully done. You told me about that, and I went there. I saw them Saturday morning, the last day of the show, and I bought the app, and it was it's a great app, and we don't have time to go into it here, but the whole package, it was a very well thought out approach for Macworld iWorld.
Were they in the mobile apps section?
They were adjacent to it.
Yeah, they were. Gene, they were one of the ones. As soon as you walked in the front door, they were right there.
So they had space for this too.
Yes,
admittedly, but the whole idea was just instead of like so many people in the mobile app showcase, and there were a lot of great stuff there, but they just sort of closed the deal. They gave you that one extra little thing to sort of force you to think about.
It's a super idea, and I am totally stealing it for 2013.
There you go. One thing I want to throw on the table, and this is maybe just because of the way that I cover the show, but Jeff, you might agree with me, but as the people who watch the shows know, I do a lot of video interviews on the floor. I would love to have the vendors have somewhere easily accessible on their website before, during, and for a little while after the show. One, the fact that they were there. Two, who was in the booth with photos and a little bio and their names, so I can get it right.
That's fracking
These
awesome.
are great ideas.
Okay.
This is why I'm here. I'm just here to steal ideas. Go ahead.
Fine.
3.
3, please give me some media assets. If I'm a video producer, what do I want? I want product shots, and I don't mean 320 by 240. I mean HD
like print
product
quality
shots.
stuff that you can resize as you need,
and a clear statement that I can use it as I
release.
And if you have any promo videos, wonderful. And I would encourage you to produce them at 1280 by 720 or something large that can be integrated into an HD podcast or video program. But have those on your site and available to me, and don't make me dive down through the press thing and try to guess where they are. Have a little Macworld badge and have it all under there.
That would be awesome.
I'll use this. I'll use some of these ideas next month at Photoshop World.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So, Chuck, I want to add to what you just said.
Please.
Okay, so the trend over the past couple of years, when I go to a booth, and I know it's not just me, because this is a complaint I've heard from other people at other tech news sites. When I go to a booth and you give me your pitch and I say, do you have a media kit? The answer should be yes, here's your flash drive.
Right.
It should not be, our media kit's online. Because what you just told me is your media kit and your assets aren't important enough for me to have right now so that I can go sit in a hall because I can't get to an internet connection and write an article. So I'm not going to write an article about your product because I now have to go back to my hotel room because I'm not going to be able to get a good internet connection in the media lounge. And I have to do everything from there and hope that the hotel Wi-Fi works well enough so that I can root through your site and try and find these assets that you didn't give me. Give me a flash drive. I know that it's going to cost just a little bit more, but you're going to get a lot more coverage because people will actually have your assets and they can work with them right away.
Jeff, that's brilliant, because that's a difference in the way the two of us cover shows. You're doing it right there on site. I'm acquiring my assets, and then I produce later. So you're absolutely right on that.
Yeah, and if you look at the types of products that Mac Observer was covering during the show, there's a very high likelihood that those are the products where the companies made it really easy for us to have their assets, so that we could sit down and write a bunch of stuff and then get to an internet connection and upload all of our stories.
Well, and on a flash drive, you can put a lot of assets. I mean, that would have made my life even easier, because then I would have had it right there, plug it in, drag it into to Final Cut, and bang, it's all there. So, yeah, great point. Great point. Mark,
how do you all feel about the some of the, again, just basic blocking and tackling, business cards, things like that? I mean, some shows had them, others, other vendors, it's like pulling teeth, and some vendors, they don't even have any, which is, I mean, again, that's sort of, you talk about, saying, putting sign on your back, they're saying, I'm not going to contact you. Don't contact me. It's not having business cards.
Yeah.
If you don't have a business card, when I come up to talk to you at a booth, by the time I get to the next booth, and I hate to sound callous, I have forgotten who you are.
Yeah.
And when you hand me a business card, what I do before I get to the next booth, I pull out my pen and I put notes on the back of your card. Here's the show I was at, here's the date, and here's what we were talking about. Goes into my pocket. And then the next week, when I'm going through a stack of 200 business cards, and it really can be 200 business cards, and I'm looking at these things, a lot of them, because I've had to deal with so many people, I don't remember what it is, but I flip it over and I've got the info. If you didn't have a business card for me at the show, I'm not going to remember what we talked about the next day.
So here's a question, because business cards, like there's a definite feeling about business cards that, yeah, they're on paper, are they going the way of the horse and buggy, but also that business cards are conversation stoppers. But that's in a networking event. If you first thing you do is hand somebody your business card when you've just met them and you're just trying to network, that's one thing. But for a practical matter, is it a business card, or is it a card that is the business size of a business card that you want, with the information on it? But you know what I'm saying? Like, we print postcard size cards that are have a little bit of information, and where our show special can be found. We used to do like 8.5 by 11 like trifold brochures, which I hated, and we stopped. Those are just too fiddly and boring. But maybe what we needed to do is condense it even more to 1.5 by 3 inch size promo card.
Business card size is nice because, all right, here's my system. I have 2 little holder things in my pockets. And in one pocket, the holder has my business cards. And in the other pocket, the holder has the business cards that I'm getting from people that day. So if you give me something business card size, it can go into that group for the day. Mm-hmm. The problem about a generic card that just has nothing but product info is that it doesn't tell me who I was talking to. Mm-hmm. And for me, that's actually a really important part of the whole thing.
So what I'm hearing is my whole team needs to have business cards, even if they're just, something like Moo cards we make up for the show. Just so if you talk to Maya, for example, you'll know that you talk to Maya, not me.
Right.
Okay.
Right. The way I react to Moo cards is they're interesting because of their size. They really stand out. But again, they should have something that's a hook back to somebody. I've received Moo cards, and again, they're generic or something. And the key point, genericism is horrible. It sucks. Don't do it. It needs to have an edge. Your name, your contact, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, because that's the communication. If somebody wants to follow up, you'd be pleased if somebody actually calls and follows up from the trade show. Don't erect barriers artificially.
Okay. No, and I think when I said Moo card, I think I was thinking more like, on demand, digital printed cards that not necessarily the size of the Moo cards are that unique size. That's true.
Gene, I'm going to muddy the waters with it a little because I agree with Jeff. I want a business card as someone who's covering the show because I want to know who I talk to, and I love his idea of making notes on the back of the card. I'm not sure that's true though for attendees. I'm not sure that like your 4x6 postcard is not, because they don't really care who they talk to if they're just attendees. They really.
And do you really want to have every show attendee calling you?
No, we don't. We purposely don't leave our business cards sitting out for that reason. No, I think I need both. Is what I'm saying.
I think I think it's the exchange of business cards. It should be at some point. It's in a networking sense that you want to do it. You don't want to force it on people, as you were saying, Gene. Way too early because we haven't even gone out on a second date yet. I don't want your business card. So. That's why I brought it up. There is it's a lot of etiquette around what it is and how you do it. And again, especially at trade shows, if you are networking, if you don't have a business card, you have no tool. It's like I don't know if it's true or just a story that in a court case or in a debate, Lincoln Douglas debate, Lincoln said, I came here for a battle of wits, but I see my opponent is unarmed. It's that.
Yeah.
It's if you're networking, if you can't give anybody anything and you failed.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and the other thing, Gene, and Jeff said it, a 3x5, a 4x6 doesn't go in my pocket conveniently.
Yeah. So you guys don't pick that stuff up, but the attendees do. I mean, I know they need that, they want a little information. So especially for people who don't want to stop and get a pitch or, it's too crowded to talk to them. Plus they want to know about the show specials. So yeah, for anybody considering, exhibiting, yes, you do need. I don't care how paperless the world has gotten. You need a something to put into people's hands that they maybe only 1 in 5 people will actually look at it again. But that's the way it goes. That's what it is, and it should look nice. It really can't just be some like Xerox piece of paper.
At Kinko's, it needs to be appropriate weight and appropriate design and good color, and because again, that's the impression that you're making. And if somebody gets it and passes it along to somebody who wasn't at the show, if all they see something that looks horrible or doesn't look very good, what impression is the company going to be making?
Yeah. Well, and as funny as it sounds, Gene, the Moo card. Well, first of all, I saw a number of people who were using some of the iPhone business card software to snap pictures of someone's business card. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's fine. They still needed to have the physical business card to have the picture taken of it. So,
right, very good point.
That sort of takes that out. But Jeff's idea of making notes on the back, it's yes, we're in a paperless age, but there are certain practicalities, and that's one that's real. The Moo cards, I personally am a little mixed on because I kept finding them in my pocket when I thought I had taken out all of the business cards. And
were those the
it's like cards in my Scotty vest. I mean, I'm still taking cards out of this thing.
Yeah. I mean, and I don't know if this is going to sound crazy. I don't know what kind of pants you wear, Jeff, and don't go there. But more and more men's slacks have these stupid little change pockets built into your pocket. Things get down in there and you can't get them out. And I'm still finding Moo cards in that stupid little pocket.
Yeah, I think they need to be. I agree. I brought up Moo cards, and I got us off on the wrong track. I agree. I'm not a big fan of radically different business card dimensions, and Moo cards are just small enough to be, non-standard, and they end up in a non-standard pile, which might be at the bottom of your pocket. So
yeah, the Moo cards, the ones you're talking about are the ones that are like long but really short, right?
Right.
Yes.
Because they do a couple sizes. Okay. Yeah. And I mean, those are okay, but yeah, they end up getting lost along the way. If everyone's doing them, then I have this weird stack of tiny cards. You know, the ones I really don't like, though? And see, this is a problem when you have a background in printing and graphic design. If you're using Vistaprint, I know it because your business cards are the wrong size. Huh. And it's not. And Vistaprint, they do business cards that are their own size. So it's not like they're doing a European size or an American size. It's the Vistaprint size. And I know what they're doing. What they're doing is maximizing how much paper they can use off of a parent sheet. Oh. And so they've gone with this completely unique business card size. And every time I throw that my little stack of business cards and I stack them up nicely and I have all my nice edges and here's this damn Vistaprint card sticking out just a little bit.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
I'm sorry, I'm just ranting because I really don't like Vistaprint. Yeah. I mean they're a nice company, but I don't like their cards.
If we're going to talk about one more thing about business cards that's you really do need to leave I would leave the backs blank or close to blank to give people room, like give Jeff room to write notes. I get business cards that they're beautiful on the back, but it's not very helpful. So, as long as we're talking about promotional stuff, one thing that I think is always a challenge, and we have evolved over the years. I think we've gotten a lot better at it, but I still think we haven't hit quite the right magical formula. Is that when people are walking by your booth, and I mean, you mentioned this at the beginning. Well, don't just have your company name and your product name or some vague slogan. And I agree with some vague slogan. Tell me what you do, but you have to tell it in like 5 words or less. Or people are walking by, and they're not going to read. We used to have these very elaborate, graphics of how, say, PDF pen worked, and well, you basically would have to stick your nose right up, to the back of the booth to read it. And, even, I think, and I was noticing that this year, seeing people who had anything with a lot of bullet points, it is not, your booth is not a keynote presentation. Your booth, you have to come up with something. And I don't know, I'd be curious if Jeff or Chuck or Mark, if you noticed what our booth said. I mean, it's kind of hard. You're not really a good example because you already know. You only need to see our logo to know what is happening at our booth. So, but we had very pithy statements of value. So. Okay,
so Jean, what I noticed as I was trying to find your booth. And see, the whole thing with the pavilion areas at Macworld Expo, it's a double-edged sword. Mm-hmm. They can get so many more companies in, which is awesome. The problem is they get so many more companies in. Mm-hmm. And so it gets exponentially more difficult to find the individual companies you're looking for. Mm-hmm. But the Smile logo is very distinct and easy to see. And so the signage you had was clean. And all I needed to know as I came around the corner was that I was able to see the Smile logo, and it was very easy to identify, and it wasn't cluttered with a bunch of text all wrapped around it. So then I was able to just make a beeline right over to your booth. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, everyone had the royal blue shirts on, and everyone had the same smile. And no, really, everyone at your booth smiles all the time, and that's an important thing. So. Yeah. So once I had the key things that I needed, I didn't need to stare at the rest of the signage. I had everything that I needed right there.
Yeah. No, that's a good point.
Guys, we can.
There's one.
Oh, go ahead. I was going to say we're going to run out of time here pretty soon, so I want to go around the table one more time and just ask everybody for something to really punch their button, good or bad. Mark?
Okay, I was going to say that I had spoken to two new companies that were at the show for the first time, and when I asked about where I could buy their product, I got two completely different answers. From one they said, we're selling it, on our store, and they said, and I asked anywhere else, and said, well, we're selling it on our store. We're talking with others, but if you want it now, buy it on our store, and you'll read it in all the Mac news when we expand. Great answer. No ambiguity. It's really clear what to do to buy their product. The other one was about halfway down, opposite on the same aisle. I asked the same question, and I got we're working with Apple and with Amazon, and it's sort of like, well, what does we're working with Apple and Amazon mean? I mean, you haven't told me where I can buy it, and then you're offering me too many choices, and you're saying, okay, well, one day we might be doing that, so I might decide, gee, I'll wait because I can get Amazon credits and all these other things. So by doing that, what you're doing is you're just delaying sales. If you're not comfortable with that, you do like the first company did. We're selling on our own store. We're looking for additional distribution, or we're looking and we're talking with specific partners. I think, frankly, it's. I call BS on it. For a new startup company to be saying that we're working with Apple to get in the Apple Store, in their dreams, there's not. It's not a piece of reality that that's going to be the case. So, as buyers or potential buyers walking by, we're good at smelling out what's solid and what's real, and what's what's a steaming pile of dung. And if you want to be there, be honest, right? Be honest. That's what people want. Don't mislead them. Don't confuse them, because worst you're going to do is you're going to create somewhere between a buyer who's confused and is going to wait, or you're going to create somebody who, gee, it just didn't feel right. I don't know. I don't feel comfortable buying from them yet. Maybe they're going to be here next year. And if you're going to be spending your money and you're going to want to try to generate sales, which is what most companies are doing there, make sure you have a nice, credible story and make it easy and confidence-inspiring. Want people to want to buy your product.
Jeff?
All right. So here's a couple things that I saw that were turning people away, both potential customers and journalists. And the first one is be engaging. Don't sit there and look like you are bored out of your skull, even if you are. Because the booths where you have someone that's sitting there where they're just like, make the day end. I don't want to talk to you. And your potential customers don't want to talk to you either. And I did go up to booths where I really needed to talk to someone, and I really needed information about a product. And what I got was someone that was so clearly not happy to be at this expo. And I ended up leaving. And so those are companies that ultimately didn't get coverage because the message they sent to us was, we really aren't interested in coverage because we're really not interested in being here. And then the other thing is, just because the last day of the show is really hard because we've all worked so hard, that doesn't make it okay for you to close your booth early and pack up and leave. The people that paid to come see this show on the last day paid just as much as the people that were there on opening day, and they deserve the same access to you as opening day people. So when they say the show ends at 4 o'clock on Saturday, you better be at your booth, manning it and answering questions until 4 o'clock on Saturday. And if you're not, what you're doing is you're telling your customers, your potential customers, that we don't care enough to stay to talk to you about our product. Go buy something else.
God, that's a great point, Jeff. That is so good.
Yeah.
Jean?
Well, I was one thing there's a lot of things that cost a lot of money to do at trade shows, and if it is your first show, or if you're a really small company and you're just getting started, I mean, no, you're not going to have the trampoline or whatever, or the chocolate sushi in the bento box, But you
That was
can
really
be
fun.
clever, There can be very cheap things you can do to send to, and don't try to send to all the journalists. I say, focus in. You can't. Definitely, that's one of those cases where it's just like sending out resumes. Sending out 1,000 resumes doesn't make you 1,000 times more likely to find a job. And I think sending out 1,000 press releases, is the same thing. If you can really focus in on people who you need to talk to, that's where you want to spend your time and effort. And one of the things that you can do, if you can. It could be a little bit expensive, but it was so worth it. Is we had our products in the Macworld speakers bag 2 years in a row. So the speakers, they always make a nice, gift for all the speakers, and maybe put it in a special kind of carrying case or duffel bag, branded with Macworld, and they solicit people, to apply to be in the speaker bag. So not every schmo can get in there. You have to have something that they think the speakers would like to have. And then you have to provide it. And it might be like 500 or 600, items. And, but it's totally worth it. And if you have something that would get attention that way, I highly recommend that. And then just the last thing, the people at the Smile booth shouldn't be the only ones smiling. to
Right.
go on Jeff's thing. I as an attendee of trade shows, I agree. There's nothing I like less than the feeling like somebody is doing me a favor by talking to me at their booth about their product. That is just you got to keep that energy up, and you do have to smile. Everybody has to smile and be engaging. So there.
And I'll wrap it with two of mine. The first one is that if you've signed up, and I'm going to use Macworld iWorld as an example, but I think this is probably true with most trade shows. If you've signed up to exhibit, you're given a lot of opportunities as an exhibitor to get additional promotion. Whether, as Jean said, it's in the speaker bag, which may cost you something, whether it's, in my case, I was doing it with IDG, the road to Macworld iWorld, some pre-show publicity. Take advantage of it. I can't tell you how many emails went out that went completely ignored, unanswered, and with now it's sort of on the other side. I was more than happy to talk to people to try to help build up their presence, especially new exhibitors that might not have a presence, and you never hear back. So there are opportunities that you're just leaving on the table, and that always surprises me. I guess the last thing for me is, by all means, wherever you are, lock your front door and come to the show and exhibit. Because if you don't, you're not going to meet Jean, you're not going to meet Jeff, you're not going to meet Mark, me, or anybody else. It's very much a virtual world, folks, but there's still nothing like making that connection. And that particular show is the center of the Mac Apple I universe. That's where you need to be. So get there.
Yeah, I would underscore that because even on Saturday, I thought I was going to be there just for a half day, but ended up meeting person after person and getting introduced, and it just went on. And then the show was closing, and they had that drum band trying to march everyone out. And even still, out in the lobby, people were coming up and we're talking, and then someone else comes by. It's a very, very, very rich, fruitful environment to meet and greet people. And take advantage of it.
Absolutely. Well, guys, I think it's been a very fun, informative MacJury. I hope that a lot of people will watch this and maybe get some ideas, borrow some ideas like Jean was doing. And you know what? Throw ideas our way, because I'd love to have this be an ongoing conversation to help vendors get more out of these kind of shows, because it just makes the whole community richer. Mark Fuccio, Jeff Gamet, Jean Macdonald, thank you so much for serving on this edition of the MacJury.
Hey, thanks.
Thank you. Good night.
Great to be here. Good night.
Folks, I'm Chuck Joyner. Please check our show notes. We'll have links to everyone, the companies we did discuss. We tried to focus on the positives, and I think we pretty much stayed on that. So we'll have extra links in the show notes to help them along one more time, just to get more value out of the show. Until the next time, The verdict is in. Thanks for watching.
Mac Voices TV is part of the Mac Voices Group and a member of Mac Level 10.